the sluggo. Slant and go.
Casey the Beef Cregan. Every Wednesday, I promise you, better and better production. And every Wednesday, it goes to crap. It's 2021, and I can't get a computer to love me.
It's amazing how that works, right? We're at the technology age, and you think you're doing the same thing every week, the same exact way, and here you are. You know, it's amazing.
I came up here to get ready about an hour ago and put my notes in and say, this week is going to be our week. This ain't our week. Come back up here, my computer I use for the comments and stuff, so I don't have to go like this all the time. Apparently has seen its last days. So, that's the way it goes sometimes. Hey, Beef, I went to a Yankees-Astros game on last Saturday, and it was fantastic. And then I watched a Yankees-Astros game on Sunday, and it was even better. Maybe not for you, but the game Saturday was fantastic. Garrett Cole, without the sticky stuff apparently, 129-pitch complete game. Obviously, Parker and I are Astro fans. Didn't work out that way. But it was still a fantastic game. And the shocker of all shockers, not that Garrett Cole threw a shutout without any sticky stuff, was that the Yankee fans were actually okay. Now, Sunday they might have been pissed, but they were okay Saturday.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I mean, I am now become a passive Yankee fan, no question about it. I'm born and raised into it here in the Northeast. It's just who we are. But Clemson pretty much gets all my ire, and the Rangers get all my New York Rangers in hockey seem to be 1 and 1A, and the Yankees are kind of 2, 3, or 4. So I don't really get into it. I think it pisses off some of my brother's in-laws that I don't talk to. He's up in Boston, so I don't talk too much trash to anybody. It doesn't really bother me anymore. Got me 15 years ago, it would definitely bother me. But Yankee fans are some of the worst in opposing stadiums. They're a lot of fun in Yankee Stadium, but on the road, man, I don't know. It's the dregs. They're bad. I'm going to admit that they're bad.
There's Kevron checking in, by the way.
Hey, thanks, Kevron.
And that's one of the points I wanted to make is I don't quite understand. Now, it's very expensive to go to these games. I'm sure more in New York. And I realize, salaries are different up there. You and I have talked about that. But so is the cost of living. And these fans traveling do they follow the Yankees around? What the heck? I mean.
No, I think it's transplants. I really, in Tampa, it was transplants.
Okay. So I'll see those in a couple of weeks when I go.
Oh, you're in trouble. Yeah, Tampa fans aren't good because they're new and it's new money. It's that kind of thing, and then you're going to get the worst of the Yankee fans down there in Tampa too. It's not good. I used to say, having lived right there, that every time the Yankees were in town, I had to go to at least one, and I would try to go to 2 or 3. But it got to the point where I just would sit home or go to the bar and watch it because I did not want to be there. It was uncomfortable a lot. Yeah.
Okay. That ought to be interesting.
So you'll have fun. Have fun, Marty.
Have fun. We had fun Saturday night. It was great. Father-son bonding. Parker wanted me to – I found out I'm really old. I knew that. He wanted me to stay up till midnight to talk, baseball and whatever. I asked him next Sunday morning before he left. I said because we stayed in a hotel where you can walk to the park. It is fantastic.
Awesome.
It is fantastic. And walk back. And I said, did I make it? He goes, you made it till 11:58, Dad. And I was like, I call that a victory. Hey, we're talking baseball, but we're here to talk college football, believe it or not. And guess what, Casey? Somebody got a raise today. Brent Venables is now the highest paid assistant coach in college football history. He was obviously very close because he only got $100,000 raise, but he's up to $2.5 million. And now that Sark is a head coach, Brent Venables is number one.
He's the name, right? He's the man, and he got a little bit exposed last year with in the playoff, and probably the year before. But I don't know if anyone was beating LSU the year before. But he did kind of get exposed a little bit against Ohio State. Hopefully, that with the Rays, it'll bump up his tenacity, if that's even possible, and he can right the ship a little bit, especially when you get to play the big boys in the playoff. I love Coach V. He's fantastic. Brings so much energy to the room and to the fan base. Like we just love him. So well deserved, and hopefully I think that came along with a 5-year extension as well. So you hope to keep him as long as you possibly can, and maybe by the time he decides he wants to be a head coach, he's going to be done with football, because he's been on the record saying he doesn't want to do this the rest of his life. So we'll see.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize he was as close to leaving for Auburn as it appears he was. I didn't realize that. Maybe I just kind of did the old la, 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 la.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Yeah, apparently he was pretty close.
I didn't know that. Was that a recently outed article? Or
it was in the 247 article today about the Rays. It talked about he was in discussions with Auburn before pulling out. Didn't say how serious he was, but I didn't even think he was in discussions.
Yeah.
If my computer worked, I'd pull it up and read it to you, but not working so well right now. So, but anyway, he talked to him apparently at least, which is further than he's got with most.
That's very true.
With other guys. Okay.
Very true.
And speaking of which, I'm doing these transitions like you do on the Chop and Beef. Recruiting. We're going to talk to JP Priester here in a couple of minutes. I decided just to ask him to come on because he and I were, we've been jabbing at each other on the Facebook group and about jumping off ledges and things like that. And there's so much recruiting news these days in the last couple of days for Clemson. I thought we'd have JP on, and he said as soon as he finishes cutting his grass, he'll be glad. And let me say, it's not like me and cutting my little backyard here. Apparently he's got a couple acres out there, so he's probably on a John Deere. So
hopefully with a cold beer too.
Yeah, a John Deere with the cold beer. But since we last talked, Jeremiah Alexander, the 5-star edge rusher and number 16 overall, declared for Alabama, which, he had committed to, then decommitted from, and loved Clemson and didn't like Clemson. And anyway, he ended up at Alabama last Saturday, I believe. So we can get some more information from JP on that when he jumps on. You got any thoughts about Jeremiah Alexander?
Yeah, I think my thoughts are just about on par with just about everything else that I read about Alexander. Is that it's so hard to pull the number 1 or 2 kid out of Alabama, and it's one of those things that if Uncle Nicky wants you, they're going to do anything possible to keep you. And he did decommit, and he did take other visits, and he did fall in love with Clemson for a week, and as kids that are 17, 18 years old are apt to do. Creatures of the moment, and that they got wined and dined. And I mean, I'm biased, but there's not a lot to not love about Clemson. So, I really believe that he probably was very high on Clemson, but then he had that one last visit to Alabama and gets around the coaches, sees the culture there, and doesn't have to go home. From all reports, is close with his family, and doesn't have to go far from home, but close to his family. So, it makes a lot of sense. You hate it because you think everything you read said that he was almost going to verbally commit to Dabo when he was on campus. But, you tip your cap and you wish him luck, and you hope Clemson moves on to the next guy in line. I think they already have.
Yeah, well, and if he was going to end up at Alabama, it's a good thing, he didn't commit to Clemson back when he visited campus. So, you lose some of these guys. As JP tells me, you win some, you lose some with the 5 stars. It doesn't seem like they're winning many right now, but, that could change.
Yeah, I can't wait to have him on too, because I mean, a guy like Alexander, you hate to miss on, but I think there's more important guys that we'll probably bring up, like Travis Shaw, like Dalen Everett, like Jalen Lucas, all the kind of the local guys that you'd rather not lose them in conference. You hate to lose them to Alabama because the way that Clemson's been playing recently, you'll probably run up against them, but you hate to lose them
Right.
in conference. So
You win some and you lose some. That's one that didn't go Clemson's way. You know, our friend Palk that we had on last week, Michael Palkovics, texted us earlier in the week and talked about Jalen Snead, a 4-star linebacker who's number 70 overall from Hilton Head. He is going to Notre Dame. So once I found out he was from Hilton Head and going to Notre Dame, or committed to Notre Dame anyway, I should say, I decided to take a look at Mr. Snead. He had no offer from Clemson, apparently, but he did have an offer from South Carolina. So apparently Clemson wasn't recruiting this young man for some reason. Not to say he's not a good football player. We know Clemson doesn't offer anybody or everybody, just anybody or everybody. So thought that was intriguing. And number 70 in the nation, no Clemson offer. From Hilton Head to South Bend, what a culture shock.
yeah, it's definitely going to be a little bit different for him. However, it is in the middle of nowhere, unlike, I guess, Hilton Head, which is where everyone goes to vacation. But I am going to be a local to or people go to live. I will be a local to this young man, and I'm hoping to get out to a game or two just to watch him play, maybe give some Palk some scouting report, more so from my eyes than, you know, these guys that get paid to do it. But yeah, it was kind of funny to see a highly touted South Carolina kid without a Clemson offer. Once again, it's one of those things that, as a Clemson fan, we're kind of robotic in the way that we think the coaching staff deserves the equity, right? They deserve the.
No doubt.
And I don't want people to think that we need to go negative on the kid. Maybe he just didn't fit. Maybe he just didn't. Maybe he said to them, you know what, I've been a Carolina fan my whole life. I don't want anything to do, or I've been a Notre Dame fan my whole life. I don't even want an offer. Like that,
right.
That has happened before. So yeah.
Or maybe he was born in Indiana or Chicago and just transferred to Hilton Head. You know, who knows? I don't know.
But it's a transient place, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. The other one we wanted to talk about, JP says he'll be here in 5 minutes, by the way.
Woohoo!
So that's why everybody's tuned in, I'm sure. 4-star Austin Jordan, a safety. He's from Texas, from the state of Texas. He's number 196 overall. He committed to Texas today. Why I brought this one into the show was there was 4 crystal balls. No, 3 of them were from March, and 1 was from July 1st. They all had him going to Oklahoma. So apparently, Steve Sarkisian has beaten Lincoln Riley for this recruit. Now he's number 196, which most schools would be thrilled to get. But as I was joking with Palk on the text the other day, we were, what happened to the other 195? We want them all. We want them all, right? But anyway, apparently this everyone thought, including Steve Wiltfong, thought this guy was going to Oklahoma, but he flipped over to Texas. And when I say flipped, I don't know the story. I just saw the crystal balls for Oklahoma, the commitment to Texas today.
Yeah, Wilfong's usually good. He's like 291 out of 296 to his prediction. So he's doing all right for himself. I think it's a little less than that, but it's a significant number, whereas some of these guys are like 24 for 25. But yeah, so once again, man, and it sounds so cliche. It sounds so dumb to say. It sounds like so obvious, but they're kids,
Yeah.
and they're creatures of the moment, man. And you know, here's a shiny new toy over here in Austin, and there you go. So yeah, I mean, this stuff doesn't surprise me anymore. Hello to Michael E. Hahn.
Yeah, that's your buddy. Yeah, who knows? I mean, Texas is a great place. It's a great university, and it's in a good city. I'm of the age where being in the city is not what I'm interested in right now. A city the size of Austin, right? That's why I live in the suburbs of Austin. But if you're 20 years old or 19 or whatever these kids are, it's a great place. And it's a huge campus, and it's beautiful. It's right in the middle of downtown. You have a beautiful, beautiful stadium right there. I mean, they're building a new basketball facility, Dish Falk Fields across the interstate. I mean, you know, not a bad place to go to school. And he is, I don't remember where he is from, maybe Denton, which is up in the Dallas area, which would lend some credence to the Oklahoma because they recruit Dallas very, very heavily, of course. So, you know, easy to understand why he would make that flip over to Texas.
And we have to remember, too, that in fact, this isn't official until
Right.
February. A lot of them do stick, but this is not the official. He could move again. He could sway it again. You never know. Jeremiah Alexander could sway it again as well. We don't know.
No doubt. No doubt. There will be some flippage. Flippage? I make up a word?
I love it. Or is it December? December is...
Well, I was just going to say, before they actually put pen to paper or whatever they do these days, put pen to fax or however it's said, there will be some flippage, somewhere in the country, if not in Clemson or Chapel Hill or certainly in Austin and Oklahoma. So let's get Michael Yahan. What are we talking about? We don't know. We're wasting time till JP comes on.
Yeah, we're wasting time till the brains of this show comes on. Yeah, I don't know if that's an NIL thing. I think he's talking about. I don't know if you want to read it for the podcast.
Yeah, Clemson will have Michael Yahan. Clemson will have a tough time along with everyone else competing with Austin in the coming years. I don't know. Everybody's already forgotten about it a week later, right? Nobody's talking about NIL this week.
And Pauk talked about it so much last week that I hardly said like 3 words. So let me wax poetic here while we can fill there. No. I don't really know too much about it. I haven't really got into it, but I really don't think it's going to tip scales. I really, truly don't. I don't know why I don't think that. But I don't think it's going to be one of these things where a kid's getting recruited and here comes a booster behind the coach waving money. I don't think that's going to – there's got to be something that's put in place there that says, like, you can't touch NIL until they get there. But, okay, all right. Not just NIL population shift, Austin will be a top 10 media market. Okay, I can see that. It's a great place, no question about it. I've been there one time. Just a phenomenal spot. But, I think this NIL thing, people were going crazy early, especially Miami with Derek King getting all these things and their team all getting paid $500 a month. What people tend to forget is that the scholarship usually pays for more than tuition. So these guys are getting a stipend every month. And it is, at times, heck, I was a basketball manager. It's a significant to be in college to get some of this money that they're getting. And I got significantly less than what they're getting now. So, yes, they deserve the name, image, likeness, no question, especially like in the jerseys or whatever they're doing. With the numbers at the sports stores, maybe they deserve a cut of some of that too. I don't know what they're going to do there. They deserve every penny of it, but I just don't think it's going to sway the scales. Because as you said, I think, Marty, the 10 quarterbacks, top 10 quarterbacks in the country, they can't all go to the same spot, right? So if Alabama's offering the most money, they're not all going to Alabama. So
yeah, I can't take credit for that. I heard it on the podcast, but I did regurgitate it, which I think is almost the same. So yeah, and let's. It's like everything else. If you win, they will come, right? It's not like DJ Uiagalelei can't get a deal. He's got one of the biggest ones there was in Clemson, South Carolina. They came to him in Clemson, right? So he gets the experience of going to Clemson, which I know not all of our fans will agree with. All of our fans, our watchers, our listeners, it's not all great it's not for everybody in Clemson, but you can get a deal in Clemson. DJ did, and it depends on your star. He's the most marketable player. That's what one person put out there. He's the most marketable player in college football. He plays for Clemson, and he got one of the biggest deals. It's not rocket science. I don't care if you're in Clemson or Tuscaloosa or Austin. You can get a deal anywhere. You just have to be really good. And Shane Crater? Is that another friend of yours, Casey?
Yeah.
You got 2 friends?
Shano's a Villanova guy. He recent transplant. I don't know if it's recent. It might be a couple of years now. From Connecticut to Texas.
Oh, okay.
So he's a don't take that one off. We don't read that one.
Holy boo! Shane Crater in the house. Nice to see you, Shane. Thanks for checking in.
It's great to see Crater. He's a good guy, man. He's a very good guy.
You are Casey's second known friend.
Well, he's a friend of a friend, really.
Oh, I could tell you a country song about a friend of a friend. Speaking about a country song, JP Priester has agreed to join us today, straight off the John Deere tractor, mowing his mansion out in Florence, South Carolina. JP, how you doing?
Hey, can you hear me, man?
Yeah,
We can hear you.
Great. You got that new microphone working.
Yeah, I'm breaking it in first time. I wanted to make sure I had it plugged in the right place.
All right.
You're good.
Apparently you got it plugged in the right place.
And craftsman, not John Deere, craftsman.
Well, you told me you were having to mow your estate out there, so I naturally went to John Deere. You know,
No knock on John Deere. I've never had one, but when we bought this place, I bought a big craftsman, and I loved it, and I loved it, and I'll never buy anything else. I love it. I'm on my second one now.
Okay, Sluggo, brought to you by Craftsman Lawnmowers.
You hear that, Craftsman? Hashtag Craftsman.
Oh, and Michael Hahn said, we're talking about NIL here, and we're having a discussion with our commenters about was it Michael Hahn, Casey, that said Austin is going to be the hottest market in the nation?
Yeah, top 10 market.
Yeah, my argument would be that it doesn't matter where you are, really. Look at DJ. He's in Clemson, South Carolina, and he got one of the biggest, if not the biggest deals. Be on a winner and be marketable, and somebody will find you and you'll get a deal.
Yeah, one of the top deals was a gymnast from LSU. So, I mean, athletes are getting deals.
Darian Rencher was somewhere speaking today around here. I don't know where it was. I mean, they getting deals we're not even hearing about. So, I mean,
yeah,
if it wasn't from around here, I wouldn't even known about it.
That's crazy.
And Jason Hilton, new commenter, as far as I can recall, Casey, the market will come to where the stars are. It may be easier in some locations, but if the company's after deal, they will go where they need to.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that too.
And they're not going until the kid's in college. They're not opening this up to high school. They're not.
And Michael Lee Hahn says the farmer is right. Oh, JP, you're not a farmer. You just cut in the backyard. Yours just happens to be bigger than 98% of the world's.
No farming here, man. I just live out in the sticks, and I got a big old yard that happens to be 98% grass, 2% woods.
That's a good deal. Okay. We didn't bring you on to talk about your grass. We brought you on to talk about recruiting because there seems to be a lot going on recently on the recruiting front. I want to start with maybe not so good news for Clemson from last Saturday. We know Jeremiah Alexander committed to Alabama. So my question is, who's Clemson now looking for at the edge position?
I think Alexander loved Clemson. I think it was a short-term infatuation that lasted about as long as it took him to get home. But after that, Clemson's been in on DJ Wesolak, Cyrus Moss. Those are the top two guys. I mean, they're just going to have to dig in and get back in on those guys. I know they've lost a little bit of ground, but neither one of those guys is in a hurry to make a decision. I think there's still plenty of time, especially with Moss. I think there's a chance they could maybe possibly get him in for an official in the fall. Wesolak's already been here once, so he knows what it's about. But I think those are the top two guys. Maybe you see them try to get back in with Kenyatta Jackson, but I'm not holding out a whole lot of hope on that. But those are the top two guys, yeah.
All right, and I think John Chansey is reading my mind, or maybe he's hacked into my computer because I had all kind of problems earlier before you got here, JP. Next guy up I wanted to ask about was Hero Canoe, and if I'm saying that name incorrectly, please correct me, but I see there's perhaps some mutual interest on the part of Clemson and Mr. Canoe.
Yeah, that's how I say it too. So if you saying it wrong, I'm saying it wrong. I think he's a good defensive tackle prospect. He hasn't been playing football, but not very long. I can't remember how long exactly. A couple years maybe. So to me, Clemson needed to get a top-tier defensive tackle in this class and then maybe take a guy like Canoe. It's not a knock on him. I think he's got a very high ceiling. I just think he's going to need a little bit of development time once he gets to campus, no matter where he goes. But I think he has got the ceiling to be very good. I love his potential. And, yeah, there is some definite mutual interest there. There's a long way to go with his, too. It'll be interesting to see if Clemson can get him in town for a visit this fall. I think he's got most of his visits already planned out. I think he might have 2 open spots left. Hopefully, Clemson can get him on campus for a weekend and show him what Clemson's all about. If they do, you never know after that. That's always the first step. They got to get him on campus. If they don't get him on campus, chances of them having a realistic shot go way down.
Does he have an offer, JP?
Yes, he does have an offer. He was offered earlier this year.
And so is this a miss on Travis Shaw, go hard after Hero Canoe kind of thing?
I think if you miss on Travis Shaw, you're going to see him go hard after Dendy.
Okay.
I think that's the guy. He's supposed to be at the cookout. Believe it. I mean, read into that what you will. I know he's Oklahoma or Texas A&M, depending on who you ask. Daddy's got a job lined up at Texas A&M waiting on him. I mean, it's hard to get a good read on that kid. But if he's coming to the cookout, either he's coming just to have some fun. That's an expensive trip to come have some fun. Or Clemson's realistically in this thing more than some people think. And even if they're not being here for that weekend, they very well could be after that. But to me, Hero Canoe was always like the number 2 to Shaw. Even if they get Shaw, Canoes was a number 2 guy because he's had an offer for a while now. He well before the dead period ended, even when Clemson was thought to be leading for Shaw.
All right, we were talking with JP Priester, allclemson.com. If you don't check out allclemson.com, you need to. This man is a machine. He's working days ahead now, he told me. So he had time to cut the grass this afternoon at the Priester Estate over there in the upstate of South Carolina.
I didn't have much of a choice, man. I was either going to cut the grass today or the wife was going to put it somewhere. I can't stay on here, man. She told me when she come in this morning, she said, I ain't walking through that grass anymore to get to my car.
Oh,
we know how that is.
Casey and I burn up the old text machine with we have our wives are very similar in disposition, so to say. All right, the next guy, I think we've heard his name 1,000 times, and we've heard his last name 10,000 times. Trevor Etienne. It's hard for me to keep up with this, JP. I'm an old dude, but I mean, he's not going to Clemson. He's going to LSU. LSU's offered somebody. LSU has a commitment. He's going to Alabama. Alabama's got a commitment. Georgia's got 20 commitments at running back. He's not scared of his brother's name at Clemson. Just a whole bunch of conflicting information about Trevor Etienne. What's your take on Trevor Etienne as of 7:58 Eastern Standard Time on July 14th?
Etienne's one of those guys. They're playing things very close to the vest. He's really hard to get a good read on. But the longer this thing goes, the better it is for Clemson. Some of what you were saying, there's some validity to that stuff. If Branson Robinson commits to Georgia like I expect him to do here coming up whenever it is, that's 2 running backs Georgia's got. I think that knocks him out of the running. Alabama's already got 5-star Emmanuel Henderson on board. They might have another one. I'm not even sure, but that's got to having Henderson on board can't help their case with a guy like Etienne. And LSU, from my understanding, has got targets on their board ranked higher than Etienne still. At least 1, maybe 2. So all that stuff weighs heavily on Clemson's side. All that is good for Clemson. I still think Florida could end up being a dark horse in this thing, but that's just a hunch. Etienne's supposed to be here for the all-in cookout. I know Cade Klubnik's been working on him pretty good from what he tells me. But other than that, not a whole lot I can say about Etienne. I mean, he's hard to get a good read on, man. It's very hard. I very rarely even hear anything about him. That's how tight-lipped this thing is. Unless he wants you to hear something, you don't hear it.
Maybe learning something from his brother or something. I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, we all remember his. I don't even know what the right word to use here because I'm scared I'm using the wrong word. But his brother wasn't one of those big talkative personalities in the pub. I don't know how he was away from the cameras, but like when the lights were on, he didn't have a whole lot to say. Not this big personality, kind of quiet. Maybe the younger brother's kind of the same way. I don't know, but
Hey,
he's hard. What's going on with him is hard to know sometimes.
well, two things, JP. Don't worry about saying the wrong words because we do it all the time. You're among
I'm in sales and I say it all the time to my customers, so it's great.
you're among friends here. We say the wrong words all the time and we mispronounce names, not on purpose, but because some of them are harder than others. So, but don't worry about saying the wrong words. And the second thing, see, it already slipped my mind, but Casey. Oh, I know. Casey and I were talking about this before you jumped on. We were talking about some of the national recruits, and we are just talking about they're teenagers. You don't know. What they say today is different tomorrow. We're going to get to that in just a minute when we talk about two guys, two targets at Clemson or two Clemson targets. There I go saying the wrong thing again. Two Clemson targets that are going to commit this weekend. But before we get to those guys, right before the shows, my computer was crashing. Jaleel Skinner put out his top 5 of Alabama, Clemson, Texas, Florida State, and Miami. Now, I know you've been saying Clemson's still in this thing, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. It just wasn't – Casey and I were talking about this list before you jumped on also, and we're kind of going, I don't remember Alabama being on there and Texas. I don't know. I remember Florida State. So seemed like a bunch of different teams than we heard about. Not a bunch, a couple of different teams than we heard about for Jaleel Skinner. What's your take on Mr. Skinner? And I guess we can throw Oscar Delta in there too while we're talking about.
Yeah, Alabama's kind of been gaining some traction with Skinner here lately. I don't know how serious it really is, but and I had got to where I had just almost completely stopped tracking Skinner a couple of weeks ago, and then I was. I talked to somebody who said, maybe you might not want to do that. I'm not saying, he's going to go to Clemson, but, they're still recruiting him. So I started tracking him again. But I would put Clemson, down no better than the middle of the pack of those 5 teams. I think playing time with him is a big factor, early playing time. And how the tight end has been used in the offense is another big thing with him. And, as we all know, Clemson hasn't used the tight end a whole bunch in the last few years. They used it more last year than they had since Jordan Leggett left. Tony Elliott over those guys. I think the tight ends are going to become a much more focal point of the offense this season. I think that'll bode well for future recruits. I don't know if it'll be in time for this recruiting class, but yeah, I don't think Clemson's a favorite with Skinner by any stretch. I think I would probably say Florida State right now, mostly because of that early playing time and how they use their tight ends under Mike Norvell. But as far as Oscar Delp, that's another kid that's supposed to be at the All-In Cookout later this month. Another guy that Cade Klugman tells me he's working on. Those are the 2 names he gave me when I asked him who he was working on, Trevor Etienne, Oscar Delp. They all 3 played together at the opening a couple weekends ago. We're on the winning team. I think Clemson's in this thing more than I thought they were a couple months ago. I'm not saying they're the favorite by any stretch of the imagination. I'd probably still have Georgia as a favorite. But I think Clemson's in it, and I think they've got a real shot to win this thing. How his visit goes for the cookout will go a long way towards determining whether Clemson can close the deal or not. And we've all seen in the past, Dabo Swinney and those coaches have worked some magic at the cookout, in past years. I don't put anything past happening that weekend. So the jury's still out on him as far as I'm concerned, but I think Clemson's in it far more than some others think. I think South Carolina's kind of right there too. His mom's an alum. I know he really enjoyed his visit there. I would probably have South Carolina a close third right now, but they definitely had an impact in this recruitment, more than I thought they would have a couple months ago.
Heck, their fans are getting in on the hashtags all over social media, and it feels like it's real. As corny and as I think that is.
Some of their former players too has been getting in on that stuff on Twitter that I've seen.
Jeremy Grace chimes in and says Galloway really should be a priority to be used this year for sure at tight end. I don't know why they have stayed away from using the tight end in recent years. My guess would be Travis Etienne in the backfield, but that's just still
up until last year. They didn't really have a whole lot of options up until last year. Clemson didn't have many very reliable pass catching tight ends. I thought they would be used more last year than what they were. Having said that, they were used more than it appears. If you go back and look at the stats, I think Galloway and Allen combined to catch 60-something passes, maybe, or was it 40s? I can't remember.
I think it was a good number.
It was over 50, yeah.
It was similar to the pass catching numbers Jordan Leggett put up by himself his last year. Those two combined to catch a similar number. So they were involved more than people think last year. It just doesn't feel that way sometimes because you'll go a couple of games and they'll be ghosted and we don't see nothing out of them. And another thing I'd like to see Clemson do more of this year is attack the middle of the field with those tight ends. They've kind of gotten away from that. I was hoping we'd see some tweaks in the play calling and scheme and stuff where they'd go back to doing that some last year. And I really think Tony Elliott had every intention on tweaking a few things before last season. I think the shutdown hurt that. I remember after the LSU game, he said he was going to do some self-evaluating and try and break some tendencies and stuff. We'll see if he does that before this season.
Well, and he's the tight ends coach now, right? So, there's that. I keep reading that it's on some of the Clemson sites that there's some natural thought that since he's the tight end coach, he's going to get those guys more involved. But I agree 100%. I actually did the same thing you did. When I hear how little the Clemson tight ends are used, that's not, in fact, true. Yeah, it's just that the catches are spread out. Instead of one guy getting 60 catches, you've got 40, 20, and 7 or 8 with the other guys. So, and as you said, they do disappear from certain games.
I remember I was writing something, I can't on one, maybe both of the tight ends after the season was over, and I had to do a double take when I saw that when I combined the catches because I was like, this can't be right, man. But sure enough, it was.
Well, either way, we want to thank Jeremy Grace. That's another new name. He's here probably for JP, but Jeremy, you're always welcome to come back. Okay, so he is here for JP.
We'll take it.
We'll take it.
I know of him. He lives in Alabama, if I'm not mistaken.
If you have any other friends, JP, bring them on. JP Priester of All Clemson. We got both of Casey's, and I don't have any, so that's all of our viewership. JP Priester, allclemson.com. Great stuff on the recruiting front. Message boards. You got new message boards up and running. How's that going, JP?
So far, so good. When we get to 500 members, we got a football we're going to give away, autographed by members of the 2018 team and some of the coaches, the national title team. They're going to give away one of the members at random once they get to 500. But it's all free. All you got to do is just create an account. I'm starting to put a lot of my recruiting stuff in there that's only going to be available to people that actually have registered for an account. But so far, so good. We're about 2 weeks in. So far, so good.
I got an account.
Well, I do too. So I was going to say, if Casey or I, if you want to toss a football our way, we'll take one.
I put an update in there on Sab last night, going by, what he has said, and I knew I shouldn't have done it. I try to take what those guys say publicly with a grain of salt, man. I did it anyway. I tried to word it where I tried to word it, but
we're going to talk about that right now, as a matter of fact. And I brought back John Chancey's comment. John Chancey said he wasn't going to told me he wasn't going to be making tonight, something about soccer and the kids. And I'm like, what's the priorities? Your kids or Sluggo, right? But he needs a Sab, and Keon Sab and Dylan Everett are going to announce this weekend. So give us your thoughts here. I know I was thinking, and I think Casey was too, Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, that if this went into the fall, it wasn't good news for Clemson. And then we heard yesterday it was probably going to go into the fall. So I was thinking, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden that changes today. So what are your feelings on these two guys today? And let's do the time again. 8:10 Eastern time on July 14th.
Well, actually,
Uh-oh.
I thought it was bad that Sab was committing this weekend. I even asked JP this afternoon about it, and he made me feel better. So I took a couple steps away from the ledge.
Okay.
Yeah, when Everett first announced his commitment date, I thought, first reaction, I thought it was a bad thing. Combined with some of the stuff I was hearing, I know he really likes it up there at North Carolina. He's originally from Virginia, so it's not a bad drive home from him. I think 3 hours. His brother doesn't live very far away from Chapel Hill, less than an hour. And he's got a very good relationship with Dre Bly. Dre Bly is becoming a force on the recruiting trail. That is a guy that is going to be a factor in some of these battles coming up down the road. Heck, he's a factor right now. But the closer we get to his commitment date, though, I put a projection out that day that I thought he was going to UNC, and I put it at 75%. So day before yesterday, I lowered that down to 55%. I think it's pretty close to 50-50 right now.
Wow.
The little bit of information that I do hear is conflicting. My only concern is, and I'm not saying this is what's happening here. I think I told you this earlier today, Marty. You never know when one of these guys is trying to put out some information, trying to keep the surprise in effect.
Right.
So in a sense, one side's getting trolled. But in this case, at one time I thought Everett already had a decision made. I don't think he did at that time. If he might very well have one now, but I think this one's been really close. I said all the stuff he liked about North Carolina. With Clemson, it's he sees how they've been able to develop cornerbacks, put them into the league. AJ Terrell being the most recent. He's also got a good relationship with Mike Reed, kind of like he does with Dre Bly, and they've been. I know one of the things that Georgia and Clemson's been hammering on him with about how short Dre Bly's resume is. That he's still new to this. They've been doing this a long time. They know what they're doing. So I'm kind of torn on this one. I'm leaning just a little teeny bit still towards North Carolina, but the fact that these guys are announcing on the same day, that's also that's another thing that I think goes in Clemson's favor. Not enough to make me swing it over just yet. That might happen in the next day or two. Well, that might happen tomorrow or Friday, but
I was going to say you still got 2 days.
Yeah, but I'm close to 50-50 on Everett. It's just not a lot of information. I'm not hearing a lot of information anyways, and what I do hear is kind of conflicting. And so it's
what about Sab?
Sab, as we all know, yesterday it comes out. He's talking about if he takes any more visits, he's going to take them later this fall. So it's like, then that essentially that means after his season, because while IMG's playing, he's certainly not going to be taking visits. So all of a sudden we go from, he's not making a summertime decision. He's making a late decision. That ain't good for Clemson. Well, at the end of the day, he announces its decision date of Saturday. So I think this is very good news for Clemson. Very good news. He was planning. He wanted to be at the All-In Cookout. He's not going to be, not because he doesn't want to be. IMG starts workouts prior to that date. They do not allow those kids to miss football practice or workouts to go to recruiting events. That's not something new. That's been a rule forever down there. That's why Everett can't come to the cookout and why he went ahead and set a date before the cookout. But I know he had a Zoom call today with a big Zoom call with Clemson and Georgia today, this afternoon sometime. But I'm still in Clemson's camp on this one. I think they're going to land Sab. I really like their chances with him. I put a percentage out on that tomorrow, Friday.
Nice.
On the message board, correct? All right.
Yeah, I'm working on something tonight or either in the morning. I'm kind of tired tonight now, but either in the morning. This is the possibility. Clemson's facing the possibility of hauling in a special kind of recruiting class on the back end of this defense. I mean, it's possible they end up with 5 studs, at corner and safety, and that's not something we've been able to say about Clemson's recruiting classes of late, especially at safety. They've missed on some guys, ended up taking some development guys. I think getting Sabb would be a big win for this program, a big win to go along with Barrett Carter, who I know was listed as a linebacker last year, but they're going to use him more of a Sam, and he's listed as a safety on Clemson's website, but he's going to be that hybrid guy. He's going to play a lot of different places, but getting him and now getting Sabb, I think those would be big wins for this program, get them back on the right track and trying for future classes as far as landing some more of these safeties, because as talented as the guys they have are right now, there's no former 5-star guy or real elite guy, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Yep.
A lot of guys that have high ceilings that needed a year, needed 2 years to develop, and I think a lot of those guys should be there now. We'll see this season, but no guys like Sabb or Carter, and I think this is going to help going forward, assuming they land Sabb.
Pet that dog. Pet that dog.
You heard that dog. Man, she had to get surgery the other day.
Poor thing. One thing I want to ask you about, we kind of, as fans, well, I'll implicate myself as a fan. Once Clemson signs a recruit or gets a commitment, I kind of forget about them. But I got a text the other day from a high school coach in South Carolina that went up against Adam Randall. And, I heard about him, but it was kind of a quick – he signed or verbally committed relatively early, right? So it's kind of – he's in already. He's in the boat. We'll forget about him. We're looking at these other guys in the water. Apparently, he's a real stud. Can you tell us and our fans a little bit about Adam Randall? He said that this coach – he coaches at Goose Creek High School, and he said they tried to put 2 guys on him, and it was like no one was covering him. They said he was unreal.
Severely underrated. He plays at Myrtle Beach, not far from me. I tried to go see him last year, but with the COVID restriction stuff, it ended up being impossible. I'm going to do what I can to go see him this year. I've had a conversation with him one time in the past. It's been a while, right around the time he recruited, but this is a guy that's he's already starting to develop physically. And he's getting stronger. He's a big outside guy. I think he's 6'3". He's already around 200 pounds, up over 200 pounds, and he's strong. I can't remember. I think he was one of the strongest guys at the opening last week, or strongest receivers at the opening, or something a couple weekends ago when they were lifting weights. He was impressive. He can't remember how many reps he did, but it was something eye popping. But he's going to be a monster on the outside for this offense. He's already committed, so he doesn't get – nobody talks about him much. He's not going to get a lot of play in the recruiting rankings because he's already committed. I think he's severely underrated. He should be closer to a high 4-star. I'm not even sure what he is, if he's a mid 4-star, low 4-star, but he should be a high 4-star in my eyes. And I work at Sports Illustrated, and this is a guy that should be, at the very least, a honorable, in consideration to be an honorable mention for one of the top 10 receivers in the country. He probably won't be.
Wow.
That's just.
So with that size,
they look at more talent than I do. So.
Yeah. So with that size, JP, are we talking like a Mike Williams type receiver? Not trying to compare him to Mike Williams, who was a first-round draft pick in the NFL. I'm just saying, when I think 6'3", 200 as a freshman, I remember the young Mike Williams, and that kind of reminds me of this.
Yeah, he's a big guy. I want to say 6'3". He's going to be an outside guy, somewhere around 200 pounds. I don't know what he's listed at on 24/7. I'm pretty sure he's a little heavier than what they got him listed at. But yeah, this is going to be a guy that's going to be a real threat on the outside. they'd like to add one more outside receiver to this class, Andre Green, and they'd like to add a slot. They really want to add a slot. You know, they're all in on Brennan Thompson. I'm not sure they're going to get him, but that's the guy they want. Antonio Williams is another guy to keep an eye on. He doesn't have an offer yet, but I got a feeling one might be coming for us also.
I was going to ask you about him. That was my last one, was about Antonio Williams.
You know, they're slow playing him. They're all in on Brennan Thompson, going to see if they can get him on campus for a visit for a game in the fall. And I imagine they're working on that now. And if they don't get something worked out here soon, they're going to have to make a decision, stay all in on him or at least, you know, offer Williams, because he's going to end up committing somewhere else if you don't.
And it might be in the Midlands.
And I really wholeheartedly believe if he got an offer, Clemson would be one of the favorites. I mean, I'm not saying they'd get him, but I think he would definitely consider them heavily.
They've got Randall listed at 6'3", 198 on 247.
I would guess he's up over 200 pounds easy now, because I'm told he's already added some bulk, and you know, he's still got another year of high school ball. I honestly, I'm looking forward to going and watching him play. I can't wait. I think he's going to be a very good receiver in this football program, and he's just a guy nobody's talking about, like you said a few minutes ago.
Yeah, as JP, we always feel better when we talk to you, but as Clemson fans, we feel better after talking to you tonight, because you've it seems, you know, we joke around, you know, on the text and stuff about jump off the ledge or get off the ledge, step back from the ledge. I'm not on the ledge, but I think I got one foot that's kind of out there. And as I was telling Casey a couple of weeks ago, it's not that the commits they have are they're all top 200 guys, right? It's an elite class, but there's not many of them. But the biggest thing for me is the 5 stars they're missing on, 5 stars in, you know, Jalon Walker or 4-star or whatever. But they just seem to be, and they don't put out that many offers. It's one thing if you miss on 5 stars and you have 200 offers out there. We know Clemson doesn't operate that way. So their pool is smaller. So when I see them missing on guys, it worries me a little bit. But you've been a calming influence on me. So I appreciate that perspective that you offer in that realm.
I mean, I could be dead wrong here. I still think this is going to end up being a top 10 class. I mean, I could be dead wrong. Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last time.
No, I think it's also a thing that Clemson's not going to have the numbers. So it's going to be a small class. So people automatically equate that to not a successful class. And that's
what I was about to say. It's going to depend. A lot of it's going to depend on how many guys they end up signing, because it's going to be a smaller class, and it's might even be a little bit smaller than what I was thinking to begin with. Could be less than 18 guys total, but yeah, they've got 8 committed so far. 7 of those guys are blue chip, top 200 players. One of them is second best kicker in the country by one service, number 1 kicker in the country by another service. So I think when it's all said and done, even if they do fall out at the top 10, if you look at it from a quality standpoint, I think they will definitely be up there. They might not be in the normal recruiting rankings. I think a lot of that will have to do with numbers and quantity. If you look at quality and go by average star rating, I think they'll be up there with the big boys.
Or the averages I like to do. I look at their overall ranking, and when I compare that to like South Carolina, for instance, or Notre Dame even, you know, our buddy Palk's Notre Dame Irish, and he's bragging on his recruiting ranking. They've got guys that they've got committed in the 400s, you know, in the 300s. And Clemson has nobody outside of 200 currently, besides the kicker, obviously.
And people, you know, always want to compare Clemson to what Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State's doing. But you know what? Clemson's already a click behind those guys in the recruiting rankings already. They already take smaller classes. Those guys are routinely finishing ahead of Clemson in the rankings. So if they do finish behind those guys again this year, I don't think that's some big red flag because Clemson's been developing talent as good as or better than some of those programs.
All right, we got a question from Jeremy Grace. What's the opinion on Clemson possibly landing Clemson alumni Ricky Sapp, linebacker his son, in the future recruiting classes? Have any of y'all looked at him or heard anything about him? He has.
Yeah, he's his son's a tight end in this class. If we're talking about, if he's talking about that son, he was at camp a few weeks ago, worked out for the staff, doesn't have an offer. If Clemson does not land Delp and they don't land Skinner, which I don't think they will, I could see them extending the offer to Sapp's son. You know, he's a legacy guy. He's a development guy. But Clemson's got plenty of depth there that would allow them to take a development guy at tight end this year if they chose to go that route. I don't know that they will, but I think it's a possibility. Because I know he had a pretty good workout a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago when he was at the camp.
All right, and Robbie Posey makes a comment that makes me think of a question for you, JP. Juju needs the ball in his hands this fall. Excited to see his overall playmaking ability. Now, you and I have been messaging back and forth, and you've told me Justin Ross is going to play this fall. I've seen some things written on the internet, so it must be true. That made me think, is this a done deal? Is it for sure? What do we know about it? So I realize this is your opinion and your opinion only. You're not a medical doctor, though you can play one here if you want. Does Justin Ross play this fall?
Absolutely. And I think we'll find out next week at ACC Media Days that he's been to the doctor and been cleared, and he is expected to be full go by the start of the season. Now, whether that means he's full go at the beginning of fall camp, I don't know. But I think he'll be full go by the beginning of the season. He was at, one of the SI guys talked to him at the Elite 11 a couple of weeks ago, and he said he is very motivated for this season. Let's put it like that.
That's awesome.
So good to hear. Well, JP, we're going to let you go take care of that dog. He needs some loving, man.
He misses the wife. They going to church.
And you stayed here for us. We appreciate it, JP. On short notice, JP Priester jumped in, allclemson.com. Fantastic stuff. Casey's on the message board. I'm on the message board. We are all in with JP's message board.
Well, appreciate that, man, and I appreciate y'all having me on.
Anytime, buddy. If you want to come on, just
let us know.
Just let us know, man. Appreciate you, JP.
He may make us feel good today, man.
Oh, man. Good news from JP Priester. That was, it makes me feel a lot better than I did a couple of hours ago, Casey.
Yeah.
Wow. Good stuff from JP.
Even with stuff like Delp, I'm on Twitter a lot with my multiple. Now I have 5 accounts, so you can imagine how many of those are burners. But
I can't keep up with 2. I don't know how you do it.
3 of them I don't really touch. But anyway, I see all the we want Delp stuff from South Carolina fans, and we want Antonio Williams, and we want this guy, and we want that 3-star. So it's just you start to believe it after a while. After you start thinking it's corny. Then you're like, wait, this is making an impression on this kid. So you never know, but JP gave us great information and really positive tonight. So
well, and that's the other thing I have to do when I'm having an attack, a recruiting attack. I have to go look at these other teams, and I'm not bashing on Notre Dame's recruiting class. They've got really good players at the top of it. But when you start looking at those, they're taking players in the 400s. We would shudder, right? I mean, okay, yeah, they take Nolan Turner, but there's a reason they took Nolan Turner, right?
So he's turned into a heck of a player for Clemson.
Exactly. He's intercepting Justin Fields to save the game.
Who's the most famous walk-on in Clemson history? I mean, come on, Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, but I mean, but there's a reason. There's typically, they got the name Herb Street, or they're Nolan Turner, who, father played with Dabo. There's a reason Clemson takes some guys like that. Venables, for instance, who was,
sure.
I think one of them was higher rated than the other. But when you see Notre Dame taking players in the 300s, and you see South Carolina taking players in the 400s, and some of them lower than that, and then they're bragging about where they're ranked, I don't even waste a tweet on it. It's not even worth arguing over, right? Who's got the better class? We're number 18, right? And 9 of them will transfer next year, right? I mean, it's not even close. So in that realm, I'm good with it. But when I see the misses on the 5 stars and, guys playing Clemson, like JP said, somebody might be doing it does make me worry a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, when the rich get richer and they stop getting richer, or as rich as you normally would like to see them. I don't know how to play with that cliche, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
They keep getting 5-star after 5-star, and then all of a sudden you're not getting 5 stars, and then it turns into 2 or 3 5-stars that you're missing on that you thought you were a finalist for. Yeah, it does start getting concerning. There's no question about it.
Well, the other thing is, this is a cyclical business. You're not always going to be at the top. Clemson fans, they can say they know that, but they really think they're going to be always at the top right now. And there's a school 30 miles from me that has their own freaking TV network and thought that was it. We're good for the next 100 years. And now they're a joke for saying they're back when they beat Iowa State every year, So just a word of caution to Clemson fans. Hey, Casey, on 7newsreserve.com, John Chansey wrote about the ghost of 2020, looking back at some teams that he thinks will be better this year than 2020 and looking forward. He just submitted another story for me today that I need to look at and post out there. It's a first part of a 3-part series about the ultimate road trip for college football. So that's coming up in the next day or so, as soon as I can get my lazy butt over there to do it. I still got to finish my replay story, but we have stories on SeldomUsedReserve.com, and hopefully one day you'll be able to contribute when your life gets into order somehow.
Something like that.
Something like that. When you get settled, let's put it that way. So SeldomUsedReserve.com, check it out if you get a chance. We're going to have a show next week and not the week after on July 28th. We're going to take that week off. I'll be in Orlando and Tampa watching the Rays and Yankees duke it out, literally probably in the stands. And chop and beef. Casey, you disappointed me by telling me there's no chop and beef this week.
Yeah, I'm traveling tomorrow, so we're going to and where I'm going is going to be a full house. No real place to do it, but we'll be back next week back and about the same as ever.
Cool. No chop and beef tomorrow, folks. Chop and beef next week. We'll be here next week. Casey, it's been an hour, just an hour of fun with talking with JP about Clemson recruiting. We tried to talk about national stuff, but somehow we always come back to Clemson. Warms my heart, especially tonight. The info JP gave us. How about thank all the people here, and I'll get us out of here.
Sure. Thanks to everyone in the Facebook group, especially Nelson Wilhite for all his support and help. Everyone on Seldom News Reserve, Sluggo Podcast, each and every one of you who likes, listens, and shares. And we especially thank you guys that participated tonight. We really, truly appreciate it.
Some new names tonight.
On behalf of Marty, Seldom News Reserve Coleman, I am Casey the Beef Cregan. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Spurtles.
I think we're done here.